session of the Joint Audit Committee. First of all, can I ask if anyone's got any interest to declare?
Nothing from me.
No, nothing.
No declaration of interest. No. On the Chair's report, obviously we can't attend other meetings physically at the moment, and anything I have to report is included in agenda item 12 in our annual report. So apart from that, there's nothing for me to report. There's no members' report either for the same reason. So we'll move on to the minutes. Has anyone got any issues on the content of the minutes, first of all?
No.
No? On the action points arising from the minutes, again, I think everything is completed. Has anyone got any issues to raise on the minutes?
No, Chairman.
No? So we'll move on to the annual review of the effectiveness of the Joint Audit Committee, and you will have seen the report. The report has been shared with the members of the Joint Audit Committee, so they've all seen it already and had input to it. Has anyone else any points to raise or comments to make?
No, Chairman, thank you.
Nothing to add, thank you.
Nothing to add? So we'll take it as read then.
Chairman, sorry, there's just one query. At what point in the agenda were you going to address that issue of the reappointment of the chair? Is this the right moment, or will that be something?
We're going to do that in the May meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we'll take it that the report has been considered and people are happy with that. So we'll move on to the Treasury Management Strategy, please.
Just bear with me, Chair. Sorry, just need to get the report. One moment. Chair, just while I'm doing that, I should say that as yourself and members can be on camera. If everybody else stays off camera, that would be helpful.
We can stay on camera, okay?
Yeah, members should stay on camera. That'd be absolutely fine. I will start with the Treasury Management Strategy. I'll just Rob Sarfas will join us shortly as well. I'll just make sure Rob. Thank you, Chair. Hopefully Rob will join us shortly. So this is the Treasury Management Strategy for next year. So you'll be used to receiving this on an annual basis. You'll note that the key recommendations there set out in section 2 are to approve the Treasury Management Strategy for 21-22, and that authority is delegated to myself to manage the investments and borrowing according to the Treasury Management Strategy as appropriate. I wasn't proposing to run through the whole report, Chair, but I'm happy to take any particular questions on the report as set out.
Okay, thank you. One of my questions was about the possible impact, and it's referred to in paragraph 410.
Yeah.
What would be the impact of negative interest rates should they arise? What impact would that have on our financial situation?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, the starting point would be to continue to work with our Treasury advisors to seek to avoid negative rates should they come in. Obviously, they can't be ruled out going forward. It just means that if we have to find homes for our cash that are paying negative rates, in effect, when we get the money back, it would be worth less than when we placed it. But we would certainly work with Audit close, looking at all our available options for placing money to try and avoid that situation arising.
Okay. Another question I had was on paragraph 7.10, when it talks about IFRS and the question of the statutory override for local authorities for 3 years. when that statutory override expires, what is going to be the impact on Hampshire Police?
It will depend on the position at the time in terms of the accounting entries that we need to make, to be honest. I think partly at the moment we live in hope that the statutory override will remain in place beyond the 3 years. So as a sector, that's certainly what the lobbying is all about and what we would hope to be an outcome. But if the statutory override is removed and we've got losses on some of our investments, that would need to be brought through to the revenue account in year. But Rob, do you want to pick that up and add to what I've just said?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Hi. So yeah, the statutory override, if it wasn't in place, any in-year losses or indeed gains would get taken through as a charge or a benefit to the main revenue account. Obviously, then if you had a counterbalancing movement in the other direction in the following year as an investment gained in value again or fell in value again, you'd have a subsequent charge to the accounts again. Obviously, we have the statutory override in place for the moment, and I think, as Andy said, we would hope that would be extended or replaced with something else before the end of that period.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Have any of my colleagues got any questions on this treasury management? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. That will now go forward to the PCC for approval. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you. So we now come on to the internal audit progress report for 2020-21. So I hand over to you, Karen.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everybody. Just a routine report from me, just showing the internal audit progress to the year to date. You'll see from it that we remain on track to complete the revised programme for the year and produce an annual opinion at the end of the year. All of the remaining work for the year has been scoped, it's underway, so no particular concerns there. You've also got the summary of any overdue actions with the more detailed report following in the later session. But happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Karen. I think it's fair to say that the outstanding recommendations, we're in a pretty good position at the moment. Nothing really outstanding of significance. Right. Questions from colleagues? Are there any questions at this stage? No? Thank you very much for that then, Karen.
Thank you.
Should we move it? It's you again, I think, for the next item.
It is indeed. I shall move on seamlessly to the internal audit charter and plan. So again, a familiar report at this time of the year. There are two parts to this report, really. The first is the internal audit charter, which sets out the purpose, authority and responsibility for internal audit. And that's a document that's required by the public sector internal audit standards. You've reviewed it for several years now. There's no change to that which was presented to you last time, so it's very much for information, but obviously happy to take any questions that you have on that. The second part of the document is the internal audit plan for 21-22. And just to remind you of the format of this, it's a risk-based plan with three quite specific elements to it. First of all, the Hampshire police-specific systems, and then covering those systems that are shared with Hampshire County Council and Hampshire Fire and Rescue Authority, and thirdly, those covered by the collaborations with Thames Valley Police. So just first of all, the police-specific areas, that plan has been based on discussions with senior managers across the OPCC and the constabulary, and the regular review of the risk registers. The shared services aspect, as you recall from previous years' conversations, a lot of that work is now covered by EY as part of the work they do under the International Standard on Assurance Engagements. And obviously, we don't want to duplicate that work, so we do place reliance on the work that they do around that space. So our work is very much focused on the areas that fall outside of the scope of that international standard and covered by those shared services. At the current time, that plan is still being developed and will get approved through the shared service governance processes. But I will bring that to you in more detail in future progress reports, so that you're well aware of what's being covered and the progress being made. And then finally, the internal audit plan for being covered by the Thames Valley Police internal audit service around IT and information management. You'll see from my notes in Appendix B that is being deferred, that more detailed planning process till the summer. So they went through a fairly detailed replan in the autumn and are still working through that work. So I think their IT team have asked that they put that on hold to the summer. But again, I'll keep you updated on where that gets to. But I think you probably will be interested to see that a regional review has been added to the plan for the first time, and that's looking at the program and governance of the EC. I always get the acronyms wrong.
ESME.
Thank you, Rich. Get me every time. Review. So obviously a really important area of work that is being covered regionally, and the actual programme itself sits within TVP, so it makes absolute sense for them to carry out that work. And as we already have the protocols in place, that will be shared with you. What that actually means to the plan overall, because we've gone through a fairly rigorous planning process, and we've built the plan based on the areas identified and the current risks, is that days are slightly higher than normal. But we've agreed that we'll continue to work with officers during the year to prioritise the work, to make sure we get into the right areas first. And as we know from every year, there is so much going on at the moment, so much change, that things will inevitably continue to evolve over the course of the year. So it's very much a plan. I'm expecting it to be reviewed and changed over the year, but I think it's a really good starting point and will enable me to produce an annual opinion at the end of it. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Karen. I'll just ask a couple of questions first, if I may. Conscious of the fact that Thames Valley, they haven't completed their plan yet, the collaboration between yourselves and Thames Valley Internal Auditing, with a view to the overall risk, to make sure that, because it's a risk-based approach to internal auditing, to make sure that the key risks are covered between you and maybe not duplicated. How is that process working?
In terms of the way the protocols work, Chairman, it's working really well. As you're already aware, we have some fairly firm protocols in place with them that says that the internal audit team for the lead force will provide the assurance on that area. So, in effect, Thames Valley Police provide the assurance for all of the IT and information management systems that are operated in that collaborative space. So we don't get involved at all. Obviously, their internal audit services work to the public sector standards. They are accredited in the same way that we are. So I very much rely on the annual opinion that their chief internal auditor provides me on an annual basis. So the honest answer is I don't enter into that space. I place reliance on that other source of assurance.
Okay, thank you. My other questions of a similar nature. What liaison do you have with Ernst & Young, the external auditors? And if Kevin's still there, what reliance do you place on the work that the internal auditors do? So can you answer the first question?
I'll start, and I'm sure Kevin will have plenty to say on this as well, because I think it's a really pertinent question for the current time, based on the Redmond review and all the developments that have been taking place recently. in years gone by, we used to have really regular liaison with the external auditors, probably quarterly, and we used to compare notes on what was going on in the external and internal audit world, areas of common interest and that sort of thing. And I think there's been a journey in that space from those of us who've been around for a long time will know that it's gone from when the Audit Commission was in place, from managed audit to slightly lighter touch, and it's become slightly lighter touch over the years, to the extent that probably, if we're honest, very little reliance is placed on internal audit work, although it is probably taken into account in the work that the external auditors do. So I think in recent years, the audit standards have moved us away from that more detailed liaison. I think there is a push in the currently around that review to encourage that liaison to become more proactive going forward. It's certainly something that's being discussed with a lot of interest in the police audit group that I attend. And obviously we will be very keen to work with Kevin and his team moving forward to see what we can do in that space. So I think perhaps it's one of those things that we could take away from this meeting is an undertaking to have that conversation outside of the meeting and see where we can take it. But I'm sure Kevin will want to add to that.
Yeah, I think there definitely has been a move away from reliance on internal audits. As the auditing standards have changed, the requirements have increased. We as external audit, EY anyway, have moved much more to a substantive audit approach. The reliance on internal audit can only be undertaken where you're undertaking a controls approach. Now, where we do rely on some controls for the audit of the police, we're relying on those controls that are audited by the Integrated Business Centre. And that's where we are placing the reliance upon the controls report undertaken by our colleagues. So where we have got the controls issue, we've got that assurance from a separate source other than internal audit. And there's always been set out, we don't want to be duplicating the work and everybody doing the same audit on the same controls. We do definitely pay regard to the findings of internal audits. So if issues are raised and they increase risks for us, that mean we have to do more testing, that will be taken into account. And we very much take into work in our value for money responsibilities. So again, if they are raising risks, we consider those, whether they're indicating risks for value for money arrangements. So it's not a direct reliance relationship anymore, but we still very much, from an external audit perspective, pay attention to what internal audits are saying, because it's very relevant to our wider responsibilities.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Karen. Okay. Karen.
Oh, Chair, I don't have any questions.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Karen. The thing on the plan, just one final comment on the plan. The spectre of data security remains and overhangs everything. And the ways of working now, where we're forced into home working, carry with it risks associated with data. As we go on with COVID, if we revert to moving back from home to the centre, again, there may be some transition risks. So I would ask, when thinking about the internal audit plan, to always be mindful of these data security risks that will arise or be necessitated by transitionary moves, I guess.
Yes, I think it's a great point you make, Chairman. And it's one of those, we have regular liaison meetings with our colleagues in the OPPC and Constabulary, and these are the sorts of things we're discussing regularly. I think you probably noted from the last progress report that the TVP internal auditors are looking at the remote working risks around IT security currently. So, there have been quite a few changes to the plan in the current year just to reflect that changing environment. And I think that's why, I say, the plan is just that. It is a plan because we know that it will continue to evolve and change over the course of the year as we become clearer on some of the new and emerging risks.
Absolutely. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. So we come on to the date of the next meeting and forward plan. Shirley, have we a date for the next meeting in the diary yet?
Yes, the date for the next meeting is Tuesday, May the 11th.
Tuesday, May the 11th. And we have the forward plan. And of course, in May, we will talk about Peter's earlier point about members and the chairman of this committee. Has anyone any comments on the forward plan at this stage? No? Okay, that concludes. Oh, we've just got any other business. Has anyone got any other business to raise? No? Then that concludes the public part of this meeting. Thank you.